This is Parker Hesse.
This is Sam Branks.
You have the pleasure of listening to Hawkeyes and Tallboys. Cheers, motherfuckers.
Welcome to the Hawkeyes and Tallboys podcast, featuring your hosts, Beau Freeborn.
You know, guys, even though we get 2 conference losses, we're still going to end up 9-3. We're going to win the West for sure.
Dylan Pond.
Here's the thing, fellas. I'm going with it. 12-0, baby. We're going to do it. Let's fucking go. Woo!
And Rob Wall.
I mean, that would be shocking. But we can do it. I mean, I think we can.
So crack a tall boy and go Hawks.
Okay, welcome into another episode of Hawkeyes and Tallboys. My name's Rob.
I'm Dylan.
And I'm Beau.
Cheers, fellas.
Cheers, boys.
So, funny little story. I mean, these guys already know, but you guys might remember when we popped those tops last week and took the first sip. I'm like, wow, I must not have COVID because that tastes awfully good. Guess who's got the Rona? Son of a bitch. Jinx myself.
Imagine that.
So we are starting. This is our first time ever, all three in separate Zooms because Dill is quarantining. But you're feeling good, Dill, right?
Feeling good, nothing a few Miller Lights can't handle. There's some, pretty much every single one of the symptoms that is listed on the CDC website, but she'll buff.
A little Hawkeyes and Tallboys behind the scenes. He let us know that via text. So he still said, he's like, well, I'll still be drinking beers and pissing clears with you guys tomorrow night. So don't worry about that.
Banjo Sources officially came out with that Dylan had COVID. So name still rings true.
That's right. Banjo Sources.
Well, we got a great episode coming up for you guys today. This is episode 36, I believe. And we are going to be talking and going over last weekend's win, our first win of the season. We're going to be getting into all the breakdown of that game. We want to talk about we have some great questions this week that we're going to answer about the Hawkeyes. We're going to talk about some good vibes, bad vibes, of course. And then we're going to get into this Friday's game against the battle for the Floyd of Rosedale against Minnesota. So got a lot to talk about. We're going to get right into it. So we're going to go ahead and press the rewind button, go back to Saturday, and we're going to talk about our first win of the season against Michigan State. And the only thing I have to say, guys, is they were not who we thought they were.
No, absolutely not, Robin. One thing I wanted to go back to, since we're hitting the rewind, as well as we talked a little bit about, Dylan's keys to victory versus Michigan State. And so the first thing that I noted was winning the time of possession battle. And then looking back, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I saw we won that. Makes sense, winning the game 49-7. Limiting turnovers. So you guys probably remember this, but obviously the Hawkeyes picked off Rocky Lombardi 3 times and did not commit one single turnover. So awesome to see there. And then another big one we said, and you guys could probably go back and count, but how many times did I say that Iowa needs to run the damn ball? I don't know. It was a lot. And guess what we did?
And to counter that too, so you look at the turnover battle, right? Rob and I talked about the D-line finally getting pressure, and I think that it was just pent-up anger, and that D-line balled out. Rocky Lombardi had no time at all. He got pressured just about every snap, and it almost looked like he was hurt all of the third quarter with all the pressures, hits, and sacks that we got on him all in the first half. So credit to the Iowa D-line for listening to Hawkeyes and Tallboys last week. They had a fire lit into their ass, and they got after Lombardi. And like you said, Bill, we ran the ball. Our offense looked unstoppable on the run game.
Dude, They looked great. That offensive line looked cohesive for the first time all year. And, and that's always a big thing that Kirk says all the time is, his best teams, typically come out in November. Well, obviously, November is coming off of 2 games this year versus or only 1 game. Shit. No, 2 games. I lied. So 2 games this year when typically you got, 6, 7, 8, 9 games or whatever it is under your belt. So awesome to see. I loved it.
And I love how you say the offensive line was cohesive. We had just about, what was it, at least 2, if not 3 backups playing basically all game. We had Coy Cronk out. Then we had our other Bandwork. He was out as well. So we had a bunch of subs that were moving around, threw some new bodies in there who had some experience, and they looked fucking good.
They did, man. They did. Cody Dempsey looked good. Justin Britt got some minutes in there. He looked good. Kallenberger looked great. So a lot to be excited about with those young guys on the offensive line as well. And that's the way Iowa football should be. They always say that they want to have the best 5 guys out there, no matter what positions are, and figure the rest out. That's how a zone blocking scheme is going to work.
Yeah, it looked like that's exactly what they did. And to get into the stats here about this game, obviously Hawkeyes won 49-7. It was pretty lopsided from the start. We were up by 35-0 at halftime. So it was early and often. It was coming off of turnovers. We talked about, Dylan, you mentioned your keys to the game that we talked about last week. Just look at these differences in numbers. We ran the ball 41 times as compared to passed the ball 29 times. So it's almost complete opposite of the week before. We averaged 5.5 yards a carry. And yeah, we won the time of possession by 5 minutes. It was 32 minutes to 27 minutes for the Michigan State Spartans.
And I think what was really good about Petrus too, yeah, we only gave him 27 throws, but it looked like in the first half he really settled in, really regained his feet, and started hitting those little, dunk passes with a little bit more touch rather than that fastball, which our receivers were able to catch, hold on to, and then get yards after the catch too, which was really promising.
And that's a good point, Beau. On the Hawkeyes and Tallboys Twitter, I saw a lot of people hating on Petrus still. And I mean, shit, guys. I don't know what else you can ask for a blowout game like that. He was a game manager, and people make that sound like it's a bad thing. But when you're up big like that, you're a sophomore quarterback, less than 3 years into the system. That's okay. Being a game manager is okay when you have those weapons around you. Yeah, do we expect him to improve throughout his career? Absolutely. But, people saying to pull the plug on him and throw in Alex Padilla, like we saw a little bit of Alex Padilla, and it's clear to say that he ain't ready. So Petrus is the guy. We're sticking with him.
Yep. And the way this game started, guys, I mean, you want to take a look at just putting together some drives. We had a 8-play drive that went down. We scored first. We intercepted the ball from Michigan State on their first possession, and then we took it 10 plays and scored again. And then it kind of got out of hand towards the in the second quarter. I mean, I think we went up by 21 points, and I was thinking to myself, okay, this happened last game. This has happened the game before that. Like, we get up early. This is like, I was panicking a little bit. I'm like, this is the same. So I'm watching the same game. And then we force them a 3-and-out. They punt. We take it back, punt for a touchdown. Charlie Jones, shout out, looking great. And then the very next possession, they get the ball back, and we take it, interception for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's hard to lose when you tack on 2, like a defensive and a special teams touchdown in the same quarter.
Oh, absolutely, Rob. And, one thing, I wanted to touch on there as well. We talk about winning the game in all 3 phases of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. And that's what the Hawkeyes did there on Saturday. And 2 special shout outs. You touched on one, Rob, but I wanted to give them because I'm pretty sure I talked about both of these guys. So we look at Riley Moss out of that defensive backfield, specifically his true sophomore year when he came in, or it might have been even true freshman, but when he came in versus Minnesota and got torched a couple times. And, a lot of people wrote him off right away. Yeah, absolutely not. This kid's a player. He proved that on Saturday, had a hell of a game, and, had a well-deserved pick 6, positioned perfectly for it, in that soft zone coverage. So love to see that. And then Charlie Jones, one of those guys that not a lot of people are talking about preseason. I know I had mentioned him a few times in our preseason episode, getting ready to rock it. thought he could be potential as, that 5th or 6th wide receiver off the bench, but he comes in and gets that punt return role, makes the most out of it. And this kid's a player, guys. I'm pumped. I'm pumped to see him on the field every down. So, and obviously that's not going to happen this year, but look for that to happen in the next couple of years.
You bring up Riley Moss. Him and Jack Kerner both had interceptions against Rocky Lombardi. You're talking about guys who all played in the CIML in high school. And Kerner actually had the last pass of Rocky Lombardi's high school career was an interception by Jack Kerner. So to see them play against Rocky Lombardi at Kinnick, both getting picks again, it was basically like, hey, we're still big dogs over you, man. Like that was so cool to say. And you talk about Charlie Jones too. The presser after the game, they asked Charlie Jones and Kirk both. It's like, hey, this guy's a walk-on. He's been here for a year. You guys have been basically hiding him for a year. When are you going to get him that Scully? And Kirk is like, you know how well we treat our walk-ons here. He basically gave that sugarcoat answer of, hey, we're not going to give him to him right yet, but the dude has basically earned his spot today.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's how those things go. It's by semester. Those how those D1 scholarships go are typically by semester when you don't come in and get that 4 years. So, yeah, he earned himself a scholarship Saturday, and he'll get one.
Absolutely, guys. Well, we went up 35-0 at halftime. We came back from half. Michigan State scored a touchdown on a 12-play drive. That kind of was a little scary. But then we came back with a 71-yard run by Tyler Goodson, and then we punched it in with Mekhi Sargent from there. But, from there, guys, we're looking at a score of 42-7. It was just a punting game pretty much the rest of the second half, and then we did have, another touchdown that we scored, towards the end with Mekhi Sargent as well.
And Rob, I'm going to stop you right there. What we were talking about at the beginning of this year is figuring out who is going to be our bruiser back, right? We don't truly have a bruiser back. And if you look at the stats, Goodson had the bulk of the carries and had a ton of yards, still had 2 touchdowns. But when we got in those tight situations, we put in Mekhi Sargent, put his head down and run hard. I think we found our bruiser back in Mekhi Sargent, somebody who can really get at least 1, if not 2 yards when we really need it in the trenches and pad his stats with those touchdowns. Kudos to him for figuring out his role, especially backing up a good running back in Tyler Goodson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. He would have been one that would have been eligible for a grad transfer spot as well. And, he chose to stick it out here at Iowa. And I think he's making the most of it.
Absolutely.
So it was pretty interesting, guys. We looked good pretty much in every situation. What'd you guys think of the way Spencer Petras played this game? He was 15 for 27, 167, a touchdown, no interception.
It was crazy. It seemed like the first 3 weeks were very similar. He started out those first 10 passes and looked, unstoppable, right? He looked like he was hitting everything, looked in stride. And then after that 10th pass attempt, it kind of seemed like he was a little lagging, until that 25th pass attempt. It kind of ended that way. And I think, honestly, special teams and defense played a big part in this win this weekend. But I think that he grew a little bit, especially getting the confidence with that first win this week.
Yep. On the opposite
absolutely.
side
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Well, I was just going to say, absolutely, Beau. I'm kind of, right with you there. Overall, I wouldn't say his play was exemplary by any means, but he did what he needed to do, and this game specifically, all we needed to do was hand the ball off. And, we knew coming in that Michigan State's rush defense wasn't worth a shit. So if we were going to run the damn ball, we were going to have success. But he made the plays when he needed to make plays. Did he make some boneheaded throws? Absolutely. What sophomore doesn't? But overall, he did what he needed to do, and he was a game manager and found a way to win. So
you know what, Rob? You say that too. The first couple of games, how many of those fastballs did he throw across the middle where we tipped it up and the defense intercepted it, right? And then in the first quarter, he had that throw that went right through Tyrone Tracy's hands, ended up in Brandon Smith's hands for the first down. It's like, man, finally we have one of those plays go our way.
Right.
Yep. And speaking of Brandon Smith, he got in the end zone this week too. They threw him up a fade in the corner of the end zone, exactly where, right in the breadbasket. He just jumped over his defender and caught the ball. Great play.
How many times has he done that? Like you are absolutely going to see Brandon Smith doing that on Sundays. That might be a hot take, but good God, that guy just has it when it comes to, being a wide receiver and primarily being a wide receiver at the next level in the NFL. So
Dude,
you're going
you
to
think about it, if you throw him a fade route, I'd say almost 65% of the time that dude's coming down with it. He's got that vert. He can jump over anybody. And he's got the ball skills to play the ball. I'm with you, Dill. I think we're going to see that a lot on Sundays.
Well, shit, Beau, you're a track guy. He was the state high jump champion in Mississippi his senior year of high school. So,
and you know how serious those high jumpers are down south. I mean, he's probably high jumping 7 foot. I'd have to look that up, but I mean, it's probably pretty close.
If I remember right, I wanted to say it was just shy. It was either 6'10" or 6'11", but still.
That's still solid, man.
Wow.
Right.
Now, on the opposite side of the field, guys, we got Draco Malfoy. Rocky Lombardi, the Michigan State Spartan quarterback, Iowa native, coming home to play against the Hawkeyes. He threw for 227 yards, 17 for 37, 3 interceptions. Not a very good showing for him. I don't know when the next time he's going to be, we're going to play against the Michigan State Spartans. I don't know if we'll ever see him, maybe later in his career possibly, but be interesting to see how he progresses.
Yeah, we'll have to check the schedule and see what that looks like.
But,
right. All I'll have to say about him is Kirk and Reese Morgan were right. And some of you guys might be wondering why I'm saying that, because he had an offer to go play football at Iowa. He had an offer to play football at Iowa State, and a few other pretty good offers as well. But those were to come in as an athlete, potentially play on the defensive side of the ball. Most people were thinking linebacker. Yeah, Kirk was right. That dude's not a quarterback. Sorry.
No, it's all good, guys. So came out with a win. I wanted to get into one of our favorite segments on the show, one of my favorite segments on the show, but we're going to do a little good vibes and bad vibes. So I'm not going to lie to you guys. Halfway through the second half, I started browning out in this game because I was celebrating too hard because I knew that it was going to be a win. And plus the second half, it was a little bit of a bore, a lot of punts. We already scored. The exciting part was already over. So it was.
Oh yeah, Kirk called off the dogs. Don't think too much of it. Don't think that Michigan stepped up.
We got to see Alex Padilla. But yeah, so I don't really remember too much. Towards the end of the game, I definitely don't remember the end of the game at all. I had to actually go back and do some research. But looking back at this game, guys, tell me about. What is going to be good? What do you have good feelings about going to this rivalry game against Minnesota tomorrow? What kind of gives you some bad vibes and heebie-jeebies? Dill, let's send it off to you first. COVID boy.
Perfect. That's right. A little COVID, the COVID killer, they call me. Just kidding. Here we go. So guys, we're going to start with my good vibe. And simply put, I got a text message from my father, who's an avid listener of Hawkeyes and Tallboys. And all it said was, in quotes, it said, "Run the damn ball." And that was when we were up 28. It's like, Pa, I know my stuff, and I'm glad to hear you're listening. So that's good. But that's got to be my good vibe, guys. We ran the damn ball. That's what I had been looking for. I feel like that's what, most longtime Iowa fans are looking for, is to see us establish that run and, consistently move the ball on the ground. So that was awesome to see. I think we just got to build off that. The offensive line got some major confidence boosting right there. And, I think we're going to continue to see that throughout the season. My bad vibe, it's going to be, as much as I've stuck up for him so far in this podcast, it's got to be featureless inaccuracy. And we saw it in the first couple weeks, versus Northwestern and versus Purdue, where, that inaccuracy at the wrong time, that's going to kill you. And this upcoming Friday night, this isn't going to be one of those games where, we're going to be up 35-7, going into the second half. That's not going to happen. So, his inaccuracy, it's a big, big question mark for me. He's going to have to make some of those key throws, under pressure, in tight situations and whatnot. And so he's going to have to be ready to go. So that's the one thing I'm a little worried about, giving me the heebie-jeebies, as Rob says.
So yeah, I'll go with my good vibes. I'm going to just go ahead and say that special teams people are people too. For listeners out there that don't respect
the third week in a row.
I love it, dude. Tory Taylor is the freaking GOAT, guys. We talked about this dude before this episode started. This guy's a freaking monster. His third ever American football game. He's averaging 45 yards a punt. He boomed a 61-yarder, and 7 out of his 10 punts this year have been down inside the 20-yard line. Tell me a better stat than that. That dude is unreal. On top of that, we have the Groza Award winner. Should have been Groza Award winner, and Keith Duncan, who's kicking field goals like crazy. And then obviously the coming out party of Charlie Jones, and then knowing what Amir Smith Marset can do on the kickoff returns too. So love that. That is my good vibe. In terms of bad vibe,
And Beau,
yo, what's up? What's up?
I just wanted to interrupt you real quick because I saw some hate for Keith Duncan for missing that field goal. There was a swift wind in Kinnick Saturday. You know,
It was
he
windy.
pushed it right. Yeah, that's not a big deal. So
Yeah,
everybody
no.
chill the hell out. He's fine.
Give him a gimme. Give him that.
Right.
Give him that kick 10 times. He makes it at least 8, if not 9 times.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
go on with your
No.
bad vibe. I apologize.
Bad vibe. One thing I really didn't like, especially against this Michigan State team, is it exposed our DBs to the deep ball again. So we saw a couple of their receivers. Rocky Lombardi threw a couple really nice balls down deep on the field, and that we got killed by the deep ball again. Riley Moss, hate to pick on him, but he got burned again a couple times, and that's my fear with Minnesota, a team that loves to run the ball, but they have Rashard Bateman and Bell as another receiver that can go deep, and Tanner Morgan, the quarterback who's proved that he can throw the deep ball too. So I'm a little suspect with our DBs for this week. So my bad vibe going forward is our defense against the deep ball.
Solid, guys. Solid vibes as usual. I will have to go ahead and echo those bad vibes, Beau. I was actually going to say the same thing. It is tricky to see, a defense that puts 3 interceptions on the board to say like, hey, that's a good game. But if you saw those interceptions, I mean, it wasn't a good ball thrown by Rocky. The one that Riley Moss picked off, it was just good position by Riley Moss. He kind of just stood there. He sat in his zone in the flat, and Rocky got pushed out of the pocket, and he threw an ill-advised pass. I don't know if he was trying to throw out of bounds or
I think
what.
the receiver cut his route off. I think he thought the receiver was going to keep running a seam or down the sidelines, and he just cut it off.
But yeah, I mean, there were some times. I mean, you look at Naylor. I think it was he caught 9 receptions for over 100 yards for Michigan State, and we knew that they were going to pass going into that. I do think though that we did get better in those regards. We got beat by one guy, but if you guys remember last year, going into Minnesota game when they had Tyler Johnson in addition to Rashad Bateman and all those other guys. I mean, that was a receiving core that I thought would have been, up there with, the best in the Big Ten for sure, if not the best receiving core. So that being said, I mean, I still think that there's a lot that we can work out on the defensive end. So that kind of gives me a little hesitation. But as far as good vibes, I love our defensive line pressure. I think that it really stepped up this game. Either that or maybe I'm just, what I'm watching is Michigan State's terrible offensive line, but it looked like that we're really able to get some push up front, which I think led to some bad decisions by Rocky. So I'm hoping to see, guys like Zach Van Valkenburg continue to make a name for themselves and really put pressure on Tanner Morgan this Saturday. So that's a good vibe for me.
Yeah,
Love it, Rob.
Say Van Valkenburg definitely had a hell of a game there, Rob. So I'm with you there. The one thing I will disagree about with your guys' bad vibes, specifically with those deep balls, is we knew going into this game, that Jalen Miller and Ricky White both, they're both big play threats out of that Michigan State offense. So I think we expected there to be a few deep passes and whatnot. But like Phil Parker said during game week, the big thing was limiting those. And I thought overall the defense did a hell of a job there, with the weapons that they did have at the wide receiver position. So, but like you guys said, the road doesn't get any easier this week with Rashad Bateman coming to town. So,
well, we really have to limit those. Or else it's going to be a shootout because we know that Minnesota loves to score the ball.
So I got some comments I want to make, but I'm going to save it for our preview. But first, before we get to that, I feel like Julie Chen, if you guys watch Big Brother, #, but first, let's get to the next segment, which is another one of our favorites. Kind of just break it up a little bit. Let's jump into the mailbag. So this week, guys, we got some good questions. I heard you talk a little bit before the show, but let's see. I think we can jump into the bag there. So anybody, Dill, I think you had some questions maybe that you wanted to...
Yeah, we got one here from our buddy Jake, originally from Mount Vernon. I don't know if we ever figured out where he lives now. I forget.
He's in Cedar Rapids.
What's
North
his
side of
daddy?
Cedar Rapids.
Is he in Cedar Rapids now? Okay. So,
Technically, in Mount Vernon, dude. Once they're from Mount Vernon, they're always from Mount Vernon. So we got to give them credit where credit's due.
no doubt. And that's what
Shout out Mount Vernon.
All those Mount Vernon people listening, you guys just need to group up with Lisbon already and create Southeast. You guys would have a hell of a wrestling program, but what do I know? I'm just from Cedar Rapids. Anyways, so Jake wants to know, guys, how fearful are we of canceled Iowa games due to the rising COVID cases?
I'll take that one to start. So what's really crazy is there's 5 games already postponed for this week. And that to me is nerve-wracking. But I tell you what, I think the Big Ten honestly is doing a pretty good job well, I shouldn't even say the Big Ten, sorry. I think the University of Iowa is doing a really good job of COVID tracking and tracing. So I don't fear Iowa missing any games, but I do blame the Big Ten for not going with our original schedule and building bye weeks in just in case something happens. And I hate to be on the backs, like Nebraska's back, but dude, they've gotten fucked with this whole COVID thing.
Where's Blaine at? We need Blaine's opinions on what that looks like.
He'd be all over that. But yeah, I know we touched on it in that season opener episode, and the presidents and the chancellors at all Big Ten universities absolutely shit the bed here. It's just horrible. They made their own bed, and Wisconsin's over there sitting like, poor me, now we can't be in the Big Ten championship game. It's like, you morons did it to yourselves. Like, specifically their president and their chancellor were one of the ones at first, like when everybody called the dogs off and said we're not going to have a season, they thought they were being the fucking, what do you call them? The, first people in charge. They thought they were going to lead a revolution of college football. And, the SEC looks at what the Big Ten's doing. And they're like, yeah, no, we have millions of dollars sitting on the table here. We're going to take that money. So they did, in my opinion, what was the smart thing. And this is coming from a guy with COVID. So, do what you're supposed to do, stay home, and you'll be just fine.
So here's the deal with Wisconsin too, is that they had less amount of players who were basically ineligible to play due to COVID when they would have played Nebraska, and Illinois still suited up and played. Illinois has played through COVID. And so Nebraska basically just didn't want to tarnish their record or their reputation for playing their 4th string quarterback. And so to me, that's petty on them. They shouldn't be in the Big Ten championship game, even if they went out. I do not believe they deserve to be there.
No.
Yeah, what happened to the whole next man up mentality?
They only have 2 good quarterbacks, Graham Mertz and whoever the fuck started for them.
Here's the other thing who I don't like about that whole situation too, is that all the teams, they all got the same information, the same schedule at the same time. So how you prepare is up to you. Right. If you want to drive home to your players that hey, look, we can't afford to not play a game because then we won't be. And to the seniors on that team that are no longer eligible for the Big Ten title, if that was their goal, that's bad timing. That sucks. There's nothing that you can really do about it. But you'd think you'd maybe police your teammates a little bit better.
Yep. See, I'm with that. To counteract that though, go back to the Big Ten's decision to not build in bye weeks, because if something like this were to happen, they could have easily sat for a bye week. Also, the 21-day rule, that's horseshit. If you have people out in public who are only enforcing a 14-day rule and they're coming back with no symptoms after 3 days and still being out for 14 days.
It's a 10-day quarantine for University.
That's what I was just going to say. It comes from the guy who was recently. It's only 10 days now. I only have to be out of work for 10 days, so don't worry, Hup. I will be back soon.
Now, to play devil's advocate a little bit, I will tell you that they are worried about what I don't forget what they call it. What it affects the heart, whether or not COVID would affect the heart for athletes, heart arrhythmias or something. And there's no way to tell.
Telepathy, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I got a nurse girlfriend here. Do you know what that's called, babe? The heart damage from COVID.
Dude, speaking of that, while you're trying to get that, did you guys hear about Journey Brown from Penn State who had to officially retire because he found out he had some heart disease due to COVID?
And he plays for the Penn State Nittany Lions.
Did play, officially retired. He was a freaking stud. He would have been an NFL player for sure. I mean, just a tremendous athlete. They did a ton of testing and found out that he had some heart disease, and officially retired. So,
But he was played for Penn State though.
played for Penn State. Yeah.
Good riddance. Good riddance.
Myocarditis is what the disease,
Yep.
or not the disease, the damage to the heart from COVID is called.
That's what Journey Brown had too.
I'm just
Journey
kidding.
Brown had that.
Shout
Oh,
out
and
to
so
Journey
it's funny.
Brown. I know he's an avid listener, but like I can't stand Penn State, so sorry, brother.
All
Right.
good, brother.
Well, and you know what's funny too is you know who else had a similar situation over the summer was Max Duggan. You know, a Lewis Central guy from Western Iowa who's the quarterback for TCU. I think he is playing now, but similar thing where they found a heart condition with him over the summer and he didn't have COVID or anything. They just found it through normal testing and normal medical care. And luckily, you know, they caught it. So now he's getting medicated and can still play, luckily for him. But, and just, you know, the access of healthcare that these athletes are entitled to, you know, while they're under scholarship is just simply incredible.
I agree. I mean, it's just all about like managing it, you know, as a coach, as a leader of the team, as a team captain. It's just about, you know, making sure that it's fine. You know, it's interesting. Amir Smith-Marset doesn't get COVID. He just goes 74 miles per hour down Riverside Drive.
30, that moron. God, that still pisses me off. Like, you know, if you're from the Iowa City area or if you've ever been there drinking, you know, there's two busy streets you don't want to mess around on, you know, arguably three. And so the first two most people think of are Gilbert and Burlington. You know, it's like the crossway, like right before you get to downtown in downtown Iowa City. So those are two big ones. Then the second one, without a doubt, would be Riverside Drive, where Amir Smith-Marset decided to go 74 miles an hour. Unreal. But positive, we get him back this week. So
You know, here's the big thing is he's safe and everybody else is safe. So we're all good. I forgive him. Forgive and forget.
he did
Here's the
his
thing.
time. Well, actually, he's going to have to do the 48-hour I'm a drunk class that no one I know has got.
Didn't he already do?
No, you have to do that like it's like a month later. They have to get it
Who
all
do you
scheduled
know?
up with the
Is
exact.
it Kane
What?
Train that did it?
Who?
Marshall Kane?
No. I've had a few buddies get OWIs.
Oh.
Bunch of drunks. Kind of knock on wood. I mean, oh jeez.
Classic. Shouldn't have knocked, Dill. Look at you.
Knock.
All right.
You listeners that don't know, I got dogs. Sorry about that. I'll mute myself real quick.
No, it's all good. But yeah, you know, we will have him back, and but before, like, I do want to talk about this Saturday's game, but let's see if we got any other questions out there.
Yeah, I had one. So this comes from our buddy Seth Pals. And Rob, you can start this out. He asked, why is Spencer Petras so inaccurate?
So shout out to longtime listener, good buddy of mine, Kirby. He's hanging out with Dill right now. And if he's available, I'd love to have his thoughts because he is a former collegiate quarterback. But everything that he was telling us a little bit before the show, like I 100% agree with. And it really kind of rings true when you look at the tape and you talk about, you know, his reads and his situation there. And it doesn't look like we're able to coax Kirby into the spotlight here, but that's fine.
Come here, real quick. Oh, he's got a mask up.
He's mad, of course. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, be safe. Repeat the question for him.
So go ahead and repeat the question, Beau.
Hey, Curb, why is Spencer Petras so inaccurate?
I don't know. Well, he's probably pretty juiced up, but I think the biggest thing was he just needs more time out there. A lot of his reads are, I think, a step slow, to be honest. And he's got to kind of rush his throw because he knows he's late.
Yeah.
I think so too. I think that he needs to go through his progressions a lot quicker, and I think he needs a pre-read too. And I'm with you, Curb. I think he needs a lot more time so that he can understand what those coverages look like.
See, and that's the thing. That's what, any young quarterback needs is time. He needs experience out there. He needs experience with those pre-snap reads. He needs experience, going through. Because one of those things I noticed with him quite a bit is, looking up that first read, that first wide receiver, that number one option, and
staring him down.
Not getting to that second, third, and fourth option.
It's
For
just,
sure.
guys. Here's the thing, and this is maybe an exciting one of the things that I get excited about as a fan, as a Hawkeye fan, is like these guys are like young. They're like Spencer's 20. I'm pretty sure. You know what I mean? Like, it's just he's back there. It's a lot of pressure. It's quicker than he's used to. So he just needs reps. Exactly what Kirby said, and I just really like the insight there because he's a little bit late on some throws. He's staring down the receiver that he wants to throw to. I just would like to see him, make the next step and take his have his throws be on time. Kind of calm down a little bit, get comfortable with with being in the pocket, just being comfortable in the pocket. I think is a big thing for him. What's interesting, guys?
Absolutely.
The last couple games have been announced. Dan Orlovsky has been one of the announcers, and he's a former quarterback. And you can listen to him as he announces the game. Big shout out to Dan Orlovsky, longtime listener of Hawkeyes and Tallboys. But I mean, he always talks about how Spencer has a good touch. He's got a good eye. He can tell that Spencer has talent, which I like to hear from, a supposedly unbiased commentator. But still, you can see it like how Spencer can have he's kind of hit or miss. Like he'll have like a perfect throw, like a perfect long ball, and then he'll miss somebody on a crossing route like 7 yards down the field. Another thing that I wanted to touch on too, which isn't necessarily Spencer's fault, but I feel like he needs to kind of throw our receivers open a little bit better. And so I think that like our receivers, especially when it's like a third down, there were a lot of times, not just this last game, because we really didn't get to see a whole bunch of this last game, but the game before for sure, it was like a third and long, and like we'll have Tyrone Tracy catch the ball at like a yard before the first down marker. It's like either throw him open or like extend your route another yard. Like that's just wide receivers 101. You know what I mean?
Right. And Rob, I love what you said there. Dan Orlovsky called it. He called it not throwing your receivers open. Right along the same guidelines, though. They talk about like throwing to a wide receiver when, when they're covered or whatever. Letting those receivers, run to get open. Does that make sense? So somebody might be covered right away, but you hit them on that post and you hit them, 10 yards deep, and you allow that wide receiver time to extend away from that cornerback or safety or whoever's trailing them. So I think that's what he said, if you guys remember for sure. Throwing the receiver open, I think is what he said.
Yeah, well, obviously I can echo that, but that rings a bell because it's like, look, like you got to get, these guys coming out of high school, they're guys who maybe former baseball pitchers, somebody who can like sling the ball pretty well. They can throw the ball far, and they throw the ball fairly accurate. And in high school, you throw the ball to a guy and put it in his hands or put him in the numbers, like you're probably good enough to play in the next level. At the next level, now we're going to challenge you a little bit more. Now we're going to tell you to throw the ball, to his outside shoulder. Try to throw this one, to the inside shoulder. Try to throw this one kind of at his waist so only he can catch it. If it's a crossing, towards the sideline or something like that. You know what I mean? So now it's like, we want you to take the next step. And I think that he can do that. And he's shown that he's been able to do that. It's just how consistent can he be with it?
Right. The consistency is not there yet, but just like what did with Nate Stanley, that's going to come with time. So
For sure.
Good question, though. I love talking quarterback stuff. You guys know that.
I was going to say, quick shout out to Kirby Hubden right there, former quarterback of the Upper Iowa University Peacocks.
Cock power. Don't forget Winona State.
Hails from West Union, Iowa. They called him the lady killer of West Union in his day, so he had to get out of there after graduation, and he currently resides in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, actually at my residence. So Quite the young man he is. So very glad to have him on the show. Appreciate it, Herb.
Thank you, Kurt.
That's honestly, that's a great segue into our final mailbag question of the night. Talking about quarterbacks and offense, we're going to talk about Minnesota's offense here. So Ben from KC, some people call him Sleezus Christ, Sleezak. He says, how do you see the Hawks slowing down Minnesota's offense? They average 36 points a game, have solid wide receivers and running backs, and experience at the quarterback position. Kind of nervous about Rashad Bateman tearing us apart. Rob, I'll start with you. What do you think about Minnesota's offense, and how do you think that the Hawkeye defense can slow them down?
Sure. So this is just the next iteration of row the boat, pretty much. They were a pretty high-scoring team last year when they were 7-0, and we kicked their ass. And I'm never going to let them live it down. But look at, I mean, you look at the team. I mean, they still have their guys who are going to be able to catch the ball. They got a guy who can throw the long ball pretty well. You look at the last 3 games that the Minnesota Golden Gophers played. I mean, they lost to Michigan 49-24. They lost to Maryland 45-44 in a thriller.
Mm-hmm.
And they beat Illinois 41-14, which is, I mean, not a lot to really say for Illinois there. That seems kind of like the game that will be closest to a bye week if they're
well, and then they've gotten hit by COVID really bad, so they've been playing with nobodies.
Yep. So
be careful there, Rob. You're rooting against your home state school there, bud. That's not true.
Yeah, but I've been rooting against them for a while. But anyways, regardless, like Minnesota's got the talent to be able to put a lot of points on the board, but I'm not impressed with their early schedule is what I wanted to get at. And they're, 1-2. Michigan lost to Michigan State and we destroyed Michigan State. And then they play Minnesota and they destroy Minnesota. So, I mean,
Michigan's not a good football team.
They're not a good team, and neither is Maryland. I have yet to, and this is probably too early to call. This is an early take, but I really don't think that the Maryland Terrapins are very good at all. And guys, rest in peace, but they killed a player, okay? Not too long ago.
Wow.
Okay. So
I like it. It's a little too soon, but I like it.
It is very too soon, and honestly, rest in peace, like I said, and that's kind of like a vulgar thing to say, and probably not the best thing to say. But I will tell you, like, I'm a few beers deep. They killed the guy, and like during one of their spring training games, like.
So did Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, and everybody seems to throw that under the table. Just kills his video guy, but whatever. We'll just keep throwing it under the table. For those of you that don't know that story, they put him up in one of those scissor lifts so he could videotape practice on the windiest day of the year. And when the fucking thing blew over and he died. So go figure.
I just think
Brian
that
Kelly killed a guy and Maryland killed a guy.
It's nice to know about
beers all around.
Yeah. No, I know it's nice to know, like, obviously that Maryland is a team that is doing pretty well, and it's good that they're a team that are kind of making a name for themselves, because that's what you like to see. Every once in a while, you're going to have a good Maryland team. Every once in a while, you're going to have a good, I don't know, maybe recently Minnesota, or you're going to have a sneaky team like Purdue that could maybe make some noise or whatever. So it's kind of fun to see that. But I don't think it's a long-term thing. I think that as soon as Maryland runs into like an actual team, God, I'm just bashing them. My answer is nothing but just bashing our rivals. But no, I mean, I'm not worried about Minnesota's offense. I think that if it's not going to be them beating us and like it's going to be us beating ourselves.
No, absolutely. And that's
trying to get back to the question. I like went on a way like random tangent. I just needed to kind of like inch my way back to the actual answer of that question.
And honestly, I really like. Go ahead, Dill.
Oh, I was just gonna say that as far as slowing down their offense, I think you got to come in with the exact same game plan you had versus Michigan State, where it's just limiting those big plays, and understanding, and not necessarily a young secondary, but. And I don't want to say inexperienced either, but not not upperclassmen and whatnot, with the exception of Matt Hankins. But those guys, they got Rashad Bateman, for Christ's sakes. They got, Ibrahim, for Christ's sakes. They're going to have their big plays. We got to accept that. You got to have short memory there, flush it, learn from it. And I think we're going to be okay. And, you saw Michigan State have a few big plays versus Iowa, and look what the final score ended up there. So if you can limit those big plays and cover those guys for the most part and get after the quarterback, that's the best way to slow down this offense.
Your last statement right there, get pressure to the quarterback. As long as our D-line and linebackers can create pressure, slow down that running attack, I think we're going to have a heyday.
Mm-hmm. Well, and look, it was absolute hell for Lombardi there too, because he made that mistake once throwing a pick to Barrington Wade. When those linebackers drop back in coverage there and, our D-backs are doing their job and guys are covered or whatnot, that's why those linebackers sit back there in their soft zone. Everybody's always like, oh, how do you throw it right to him? Like, we have no idea how that happens. That's just the quarterback watching a wide receiver and forgetting a linebacker's popping back in the zone. So, a quarterback's watching his read, seeing a guy come across the field and it's like, oh, he's going to be open. Well, bam, throw it right to a linebacker. So
shout out Barrington Wade. That was one hell of an interception. And if you look at it, that's a tough interception to make too. So shout out Barrington Wade. He's played 2 solid games back to back. I really like that guy.
He has. I'm loving, I wouldn't say loving the linebacker core, but loving this experience they're getting in this essentially free year where, these guys can come back for another year if they'd like. So,
and we get Jack Campbell back this week. So a lot to be looking forward to.
Yeah, a lot to be excited about there. And actually, guys, I wanted to point out, we did have one more mailbag question that I forgot to throw in to your guys' outline, so no fault of your own. But Justin out of North Liberty, he wants to know, guys, does Iowa have any shot of landing Xavier Nwankpa? And for those of you that don't know, he's a 4-star on Rivals, 4-star on 247 as well. He's a defensive back out of the Pleasant Hill, Des Moines area, currently playing for Southeast Polk. And I know you guys don't, I'm usually our recruiting expert, so I'll go ahead and take this one if you're okay with that.
Perfect. I was going to say, that's a perfect question for you, Dill.
Right. So as far as that goes right now, Justin, it's as good of a shot as anybody. He's a class of 2022 guy, so, or he might be class of 20. No, he's class of 2022.
Yep, 22.
Yep. So he's got a whole nother year of football to play. He's made it very apparent that he wants to take his visit, so he's going to be waiting until, all this COVID stuff not wraps up, so these guys can start making on-campus visits again and whatnot. So another thing to note is he's playing in the semifinals right now, currently for Southeast Polk, with a good shot at winning a state title. So his sole focus is on that. But the last thing we've heard within a couple weeks is, Iowa's just as much in the hunt as anybody, and it's solely because of Phil Parker. He didn't even say much about being from the state of Iowa. It's just Phil Parker and his, development of defensive backs throughout the years, looking at guys specifically under recruited guys, talking guys like Josh Jackson
in front of him.
King. Oh,
Sorry.
little highlight reel there.
No, it just popped up. No, keep going.
So
Keep going.
for you listeners out there, the top 5 schools that are big on him: Arizona State, Clemson, Florida, Iowa, LSU is up there. A ton of Big Ten schools like Ohio State, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Texas is even up there. So a lot of big name schools that are trying to recruit this guy.
Yeah. So pretty much every school in the nation is coming after this kid, and it sounds like Iowa's going to be in it to the very end. And as far as what Phil Parker and the effort that Tyler Burns and the guys in the recruiting office in Iowa City are doing, absolutely no fault of their own. They're doing everything they can, and Skyping with this guy or Zooming or whatever the heck all these crazy kids call these new technological advances these days. So Iowa's doing everything they can, and they got as good of a shot as anyone.
Thanks for the question.
I agree. And so that's a great question. I mean, we got some good recruits coming in. I mean, it's a great year to kind of showcase what we can do for the recruits, because it's just a free year to just, see how it goes. But this tomorrow, I almost said this Saturday. I'm so used to it.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. A Friday night matchup, Friday Night Lights against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Beau, you want to take us away? Tell us about this.
Yes, sir. So for all you guys watching, Friday the 13th, we're playing up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Kickoff 6 o'clock. If you guys are trying to watch on TV, FS1, just so you guys know, the spread's at 3.5. Over-unders at 58. Iowa is a 64, just about 65% favorite. And it's going to be one hell of a game. It's going to be a pretty good offense with a bad defense, Minnesota, against a pretty decent offense, against a pretty decent defense, Iowa. So pretty exciting game. It's going to be a Friday game, so a short week for Iowa. Minnesota's excited. They've already played a Friday game, got their asses beat by Maryland, who we don't think is a good team, but should be a pretty good one. So, guys, what do you think about this?
So I'll go ahead and start, guys. With this game coming up, we talked about early in the podcast, we talked about it last year when we played Minnesota. We're very worried about the talent they have, with the receiving core. They have a quarterback who can get them the ball, blah, 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 blah. But if you look at the last 3 games that this iteration of the Minnesota Golden Gophers have played, they are a run-first team. In that game against Maryland, their running back, which was Ibrahim.
That's the last
Ibrahim.
What's his name?
Mohammed Ibrahim.
I was going the opposite way. Anyways, Mohammed Ibrahim. He ran the ball 41 times. They gave him the ball 41 times in that Maryland loss. That's what Rob. I don't mean to interrupt you there, but just I found some season stats on him earlier. So far this year, he's got 97 carries. So this is 3 games, mind you. 97 carries for 571 yards, averaging 5.9 yards a carry with 10 touchdowns. So without a doubt, these guys are a run-first team. But go on. I mean, he is getting the ball all the time. And you know what it looks like to me? It kind of looks like a little bit like us or how we ought to be playing.
Absolutely.
He is a lone back, so we need to play run first, basically. I doubt that Minnesota row the boat is going to change what they do based off our defense or what we're doing. It seems like when they played Michigan, when they played Maryland, when they played Illinois, they were running the ball 10 or more times more than they would pass. Not like times isn't like exponential, but like the breakdown was like always in the 40s to the 20s, or it'd be like 50 to 30.
Right.
When it comes to like running the ball versus passing the ball. So they're definitely a run first team. And we need to be aware of that, which I think is going to make it trickier for the defensive backs, because then you're having to cover these guys who are talented. And most of the time it's going to be a run, but the time that it's not a run, you can't get burned.
Yeah. And, and kind of going off that, Rob, because I'm with you there. I think this might be one of those perfect weeks I know, the Iowa defense has been going more towards that 4-2-5, and what that 4-2-5 is, for those that don't know, is essentially playing with that extra defensive back, linebacker hybrid that we call the cash position. But I think this might be a good week to come back and go back to that 4-3, 4-3, where we got that run first stopping. And, that way you can get a guy, you can cover that Ibrahim out of the backfield, because he is also a receiving threat for the Minnesota offense as well. But that way, you can stick a cornerback with a safety spying on Rashad Bateman. So you're looking at that, essentially getting all your bases covered there. I guess I don't know what you guys think about that. Tell me if you think I'm crazy.
No, I think you're right. I really like that too. And one thing I will credit, I don't like him, but I will credit Minnesota's head coach for is recruiting big, tall linemen. Like they're all like 6'6", 6'7". They're huge dudes. Like they're
big.
Like they're big.
But they're garbage.
They are garbage. But at the same time,
up.
350 going up against 250. I mean, that's leverage Minnesota, right?
They're just going to get in your way.
Yeah, exactly. They're just large people in the way.
350 and they stand up and get ransacked and knock on wood there. I'm not going to do it because I got dogs here and we saw what happened last time. But I mean, I just don't see it. We heard so much about that Minnesota offensive line coming into the game last year, and our defense, specifically AJ Epinesa and company, just had a field day. So it's like, I don't know if I want to hear that. And Johnson Golston was another one versus Minnesota that had a field day last year. So no.
I hope you're right. But at the same time, I still think that they're big enough and they have the experience now after a year that they're going to be able to create some holes, which obviously they have for Ibrahim. You know, to be honest, too, I think he's a good running back. But think about this. He scored 4 touchdowns against Illinois. He scored 4 touchdowns against Maryland and then 2 against Michigan. So, yeah, he's got at least 2 touchdowns a game. But at the same time, he's got 8 touchdowns against no competition, in my opinion. So it's like, is he truly the back that we see, you know, like the poster board back? You know what I mean? They're 1 and 2. He's got 10 touchdowns. Yes, he's got a lot of touchdowns and a lot of yards, but at the same time, it's like, is this guy legit? Like, is he good against, you know, good competition? Last year against Iowa, I thought he played well, but I don't know. I guess the game will tell, but at the same time, it's just, I'm a little suspect with him, to be honest.
And that's fair, Beau, but you know, just kind of watching the tape on their first 3 games myself is, you know, the thing about him is, and I think more so than last year, is he's that big play threat for him now. Now, again, you touched on it. I don't think he's played against that great of defenses, you know, these first 3 games, but you know, he's still that home run hitter that, you know, they recruited him to be.
Now, let me ask you this, Dill. Let me stop you there. Who do you think that he reminds you of? Like a Big Ten back that he reminds you of? Does he remind you more of like an Akram Wadley? Does he remind you more of like a James White, like a receiving but a great running back? Does he remind you of like a Saquon Barkley? I mean, who does he remind you of?
Not quite a Saquon where he's like an elite. There's a PJ Fleck word for you guys, but an elite level, you know, receiving and running back. I think, you know, this guy's a primarily, you know, on the ground running back and whatnot. I don't think you're going to see him do too much damage out of passing situations, with the exception of a few big play screens and whatnot. I see him. One of the people you just mentioned, Beau, was like James White. I really like that comparison. Another one I liked was an old Minnesota running back whose name escaped me. He played for the Cowboys for a while, but he got a little bit bigger in his time in the NFL. God, somebody's going to come back and tell us the name of this guy, and I'll probably think of it here in a second. But anyways, so he's primarily that head down runner, you know, kind of a mixture of a speed and power back. Like if you're looking at the Hawkeyes, he kind of reminds me of Mekhi Sargent with a little bit more top end speed. But is he a receiving threat? Absolutely, but not to the level of somebody like Saquon Barkley or, you know, Jonathan Taylor or some of those guys that I was traditionally used to having to deal with. So definitely a challenge. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think we're putting him up in that caliber just yet.
Are you talking Marion Barber?
Thank you, Marion Barber. That's what I was thinking of.
Got it.
I think that is a good comparison to him. I mean, I try to look for faults in his game because obviously they just give him the ball so damn much. He carried the ball in 2019. He carried the ball 114 times. In 2020, through 3 games, he's carried the ball 97 times. Now, he carried the ball 202 times the year before that. He might have got injured, it looks like. But regardless, the amount he gets to the ball is asinine, in my opinion. But he averages 5.9 yards a carry. So it's like hard to fault them for giving him the ball so much, but
it's working, right?
You know,
that's what Kirk and Brian Ferentz been needing to do for Iowa the last couple of weeks. Give the running backs the damn ball.
Run the damn ball. I mean, how many times do we got to say it? PJ Fleck listens to the podcast, apparently.
Yeah.
As much as we think he's a Gomer, apparently he's listening.
Shout out PJ Fleck, but fuck PJ Fleck, right?
Yeah. Here's what I think, though, guys. So we got a over under at 58. Iowa just scored 49 in a win against Michigan State. Minnesota just scored 41, I think, against their last opponent. So, I mean, we're not scoring upwards of 80 points. What do you think about this over-under, guys?
What did you say, 58?
58 is the over-under.
Oh, I see. I won't tell you guys my prediction just yet, but I can tell you I got the over by a point at 59. So, like, that's wild to me. Holy shit, Vegas, man, they're too good about that. They know things are going to happen before we do. So,
And think about last year too. Iowa beat Minnesota last year 24-19. So it was a little bit lower than what we thought it was going to be. 58.5. They're just going based off of how explosive Minnesota's offense is and how explosive Iowa's offense is. So take that in considerations out there for you guys betting. That's tough for me to say this, but I think the over is almost a no doubter.
You
Really?
think? Oh God, I'm saying don't touch it. Absolutely not. Oh,
It's
that's
tough.
a lot of points.
It is tough. It's a high over under, I think. It's pretty high. And like the problem is that, you know, us, like we're such Iowa Hawkeye defense truthers. You know
Right?
what I mean?
I as soon as you bet the over, I was going to win this game 14-10 or something. And
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say too. It's like Kirk is going to just run the damn ball. They're not going to throw but 10 passes, and it's going to be over with before we score 21 points. You're right.
I mean,
you're right.
I'll say though, I mean, I think this game is such a toss-up. And of the last few times that we've played Minnesota, and let me remind all the Minnesota listeners that we have that Iowa is currently on a 5-game winning streak against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. We beat them last year when they were 7-0 and they were nationally ranked. We got the Floyd Rosedale. He's been hanging out in our facilities for the last 5 years. I don't think that this team is going to be the team that gives it up, because I don't think that Minnesota is as good as they were last year. And I think that's an obvious statement. I don't think that we are either. We're a completely different team, but I still think that we have what it takes to get it done. But
absolutely. Well, that's a good time before we get in predictions then. We better touch on Dylan's keys to victory, should we?
yes,
Since we started last week, it worked out pretty well, did it not?
I love this segment. I'm okay to keep it. Maybe we can give it up to Boyd, but let's send it down to Dylan. Dylan, what are the keys to victory against the Minnesota Golden Gophers this Friday?
All righty, y'all. I got four of them. I had 4 last week. We're sticking with it. I'm not superstitious at all. I'm a little superstitious. Here we go. Number 1, you might have heard this one before. It's going to be the time of possession. The Hawks need to hold on to the ball. Obviously, this Minnesota offense has some firepower. And the best way to limit big plays, don't give the offense the ball. So here we go. We need to run the damn ball, continue doing that. Control the offensive line, control that line of scrimmage, and I think we're going to have a good day up in Minneapolis. Number 2, we got the rush defense. Rush defense has been a big question mark in the first couple games. They came out firing last week versus Michigan State, who wouldn't be necessarily known for their rushing attack, but nonetheless, they were averaging, upwards of 100 yards a game. So excited to see that. Excited to see those guys in the defensive line and that front 7 and the linebacker crew and the cash spot, continue that. We're going to have to stop. We're going to have to stop Ibrahim early and often and make these guys throw the ball and, beat us with Rashad Bateman and Tanner Morgan. Number 3, this is the big one. This is a big one. I noticed this over and over again, watching highlights, watching some tape from previous Minnesota games, is their defense. Their defense is horrid, absolutely horrid on the edge. And does that remind you guys of any other team that we've played within the last 12 months? It does to me. USC. How many times did we drop that reverse and that end around on them and, take that for touchdowns, and as well as Nebraska? And with Amir Smith-Marset coming back this week, along with Charlie Jones, that's absolutely massive. Even Goodson, another one. We need to be attacking the edge all fucking night. I love it. If we do that, we are going to win, and we are going to win big. That being said, another thing we got to do, another thing these guys are a little bit susceptible to as well, is forcing turnovers. Our defense has proven in the first 3 weeks that we can do that, but not to the point where we can win the game, because our offense has been turning over the ball just as much, with the exception of last week versus Michigan State. So that defense needs to continue causing havoc, creating turnovers, and putting our offense in good positions to score. So what do you guys think?
Well, first off, we want to say thank you to our sponsor, Hupp Electric Motors, for sponsoring the Dylan's Keys to the Game. So Hupp Electric Motors, if you have an electric motor, call Hupp.
No, don't call Hupp. We're busy then. Just kidding. Just kidding. Go on. Oh, anything else, fellas? What do you got?
Yeah, sure. So I can talk about that. I think perfect keys to the game there. I think that if we were going to break it down even further, specifically on limiting Ibrahim, who seems to be a guy who is going to get the ball a lot. Last game we were able to hold the whole Michigan State offense to like 118 or something yards, or maybe it was like 1.8 yards a carry, which is great. What a great confidence booster going into this game against the Golden Gophers. But what does that look like? What's a bad game for him? What's a containment game for him? Would you say under 100 yards?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you got to hold Ibrahim to under 100 yards. If we can keep him out of the end zone, he's going to get his touches. They're going to get into the end zone. I get that. If you can hold him to a touchdown or even less, we're going to be in a good position. If he continues running the ball at will, getting 2, 3, 4 touchdowns a game, obviously we're going to be in a bad situation there, and we're going to be in shootout range, as Beau was talking about earlier. So my big thing is just, again, and I know we've hit on it. I know Phil Parker's hit on it. We just have to limit the big plays. And he's another one, Ibrahim, where, you let him get on the edge and he's burning you. He's got that kind of speed. And Devin, love her, my girlfriend and whatnot, but she was sitting there watching highlights with me, dealing with me, and she's like, oh my gosh, honey, this guy is fast. And it's like, yeah, he's fast, but everybody that plays D1 football is fast. So we got to figure out a way to contain him, keep him off that edge. And, frankly, we just got to get back to, Rob, you sent us that picture of it. It's an old school Norm Parker, Iowa defensive, philosophy, but talking about that 6 seconds of hell. If he comes across that line and Jack Campbell or somebody puts a helmet, I know it's technically spearing, sorry about it, but someone puts a helmet in his chest and knocks the fucking wind out of him, he's not going to want to run up against those guys much longer.
Dill, I really like your key to the game about running the outside too, especially with getting Amir Smith-Marset out. You are 100% right. This team is giving up, listen to this, 7 yards per carry against the rush. So their rush defense is atrocious. But you got some dudes that
probably worse than Michigan State.
Yeah, dude. They got some dudes that play like they got a couple of D linemen, a couple of linebackers, but they have nobody who can stop the run unless you're going to start packing the house. And you know what happens in pack the house? Run a little screenplay, run a little dunk, pull a 5-yard out, right up the seam. What's that do? Creates the run. So we got to figure out what we can do to do around the outsides. Like you said, against USC, we did a tremendous job about running all of those, in the rounds and outside zones and anything that we can do to just hit the corner. And I think, honestly, that Kirk and Brian have the offensive line to be able to go around that outside. We saw Charlie Jones last week do a couple end rounds that looked really good.
And he looked great.
And then honestly, if Spitzer Petras can run as fast as Nate Stanley did against Nebraska, I think we got a pretty nice lead blocker for Amir Smith-Marset on the outside on the end round too. So
hell yeah.
I'd be down. I'd be down to watch that all day.
For sure.
Now, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but this kind of feels, even though it's 2020 and it's COVID, this game against the Gophers kind of feels a little bit like it did last year, where the Golden Gophers are, even though they're 1-2, we're 1-2.
Right.
But they seem to be, playing really, for them, I guess, playing really well. But listen to these last 3 games, and not to harp on Mohammed Ibrahim, but he had 4 touchdowns against Illinois, averaged 7.5 yards a carry, ran for 224 yards. The game before, he ran at Maryland, 5 yards a carry, 207 yards, 4 touchdowns. Like against number 18 Michigan at the time, 140 yards, 5.4 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. Now, I'm not saying that he's playing against – we're going to be the best team that he's played against so far. But, if that dude's on my fantasy team, I'm starting him. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so what this week is going to come down to, Rob, and if you've ever heard it, like I remember a few years back, Jaleel Johnson talked about it when he was in the NFL and he kind of went off his rookie year and got a few sacks and whatnot. And everybody's like, whoa, we never saw that at Iowa. Where did that come from? And he's like, well, at Iowa, I wasn't allowed to rush the quarterback. Because Iowa on the defensive line, particularly those tackle spots, they play what's called a gap defense. So essentially what those big boys, their job is to fill a gap. And so the idea behind that is that those linebackers behind you, those 3 linebackers or 2 linebackers or whatever it is, depending on the defense, is they got their own gap responsibilities to fill. And so if everybody is doing their job there, Rob, Ibrahim shouldn't rush for more than 50 yards on Friday. Now, obviously, it doesn't always go like that, right? I mean, that's perfect
That's
world.
bold.
That's perfect world playing against a scout team running back who's actually your 3rd string fullback. It doesn't work like that. We all know that. Obviously, Ibrahim's more
Unless your name's Mark Weissman, right?
Exactly. And we know Ibrahim's more talented than that. So we get that. But if everybody's doing their job and it all comes down to execution on that defense, and if they play 95% as good as they did versus Michigan State and stopping the run, which I think I looked it up earlier, they had rushing yards alone. They had 59 rushing yards with a touchdown last week. If we can hold Minnesota to that, or even just hold them under 100, Iowa's going to be in a good position to win this game Friday.
Yep. Well, not to harp on it too much. Love the keys to the game. Thanks, Dill, for bringing that to us and all the listeners. So those are some things that we can look for to see, like, hey, are we executing? Is this something that is going to be able to bring us to a win, or hopefully it's not going to come down to a nail biter situation. I'd love to see another week where I cannot remember the 4th quarter and cruise to another victory.
Hell yeah.
But that is going to bring us to predictions. So maybe I'll send it over to Beau. What are you thinking for predictions? What do you want to can you break down? Because for the degenerates out there, I need a reminder on the spread, over under, all of that.
Yeah, dude, for sure. So spreads at 3.5 was the last time we checked. So 3.5 right now, over under at 58. So we talked a little bit about that. So here's the real deal, is that Iowa's going to be playing on a short week, right? So we just played Saturday. It's going to be a Friday game. So one of these 2 teams have already played on a Friday, which is Minnesota. Minnesota lost to Maryland in overtime about 2 Fridays ago. So we've already seen that. But we do know, though, what's up, Dill, like that. We do know that Iowa's played pretty well the last 5 Fridays. Can anybody remind me who we play on Fridays? Oh, Nebraska, Black Friday. So we're 5-0 against Nebraska. Last 5 years. Last 5 years we beat Minnesota, and so we've got a pretty good rapport with those teams the last 5 years. I do not think that Minnesota's a great team. The only thing I have for Minnesota, though, is I was traveling north and on a short week. I talked about the over-under a little bit earlier. I thought at the beginning of the episode that, these teams are going to be, it's going to be a shootout, but we always remember it's Iowa playing football. So I hate to say this, but I think Minnesota's deep ball has got us pinned in a tight spot. I got Minnesota winning 23-20 this week over the Hawkeyes.
That is tough to hear. Dill, what do you think about that prediction?
Oh, I think he's wrong, but that's okay. I'm going the other way. I can't argue any of his points. I think the deep ball is going to be there, just like it was with Rocky Lombardi a few times. I think as long as Iowa limits it, Iowa's going to be okay in this game. And as Beau said, Iowa had won the last 5, so Minnesota in particular, PJ Fleck's going to come out guns blazing. They want this game. Part of the reason probably is on Friday night, for everyone to see it. But I still have the Hawkeyes taking this one. This one's going to be 31-28, and I don't know if it's going to be a last-second Keith Duncan field goal, but Keith Duncan's going to be the difference in this one, and the Hawkeyes are going to win the ball game.
That would be. I mean, they're not playing. Are they playing outdoors up there?
Oh, they're playing outdoors.
That's right. I was
going to say 31 degrees expected at kickoff.
Wonder how windy it's going to be.
Oh, it's going to be cold, some bitch. I don't
We'll
know.
we'll have to check the wind. Hopefully
Mhm.
Keith accounts for that when he's kicking tomorrow.
Right.
I am not so optimistic about these Hawks playing against Minnesota. I am gonna pick them to lose, unfortunately. Looking at the over under of 58, I just think that I just don't anticipate it going over that. So I think it's gonna be
Under. Hit it.
I think it's gonna be under. I think they're gonna lose to the Gophers 28-24. So
So,
keeping it
and just
easy
look,
with the divide by 7 numbers. Maybe there's a Keith Duncan field goal in there.
And for the record, I don't hate your guys' predictions by any means. I think there's a pretty good shot that we end up losing this game. But I think we have enough on the offensive firepower. I think we got enough on the defensive side of the ball that we can end up winning this game. And I doubted these boys last week. I think we all remember that. I picked them to lose, and they fucking splurged in my face, did they not? So I can't go against them again. I think they're going to get it done.
I like that. And you know what? I looked at the records of the other teams, the remaining teams that we have for the rest of the year. They're combined 2-10. So to be honest with you, we could fuck around and end up 6-2 before going into that final week of playing the East, either champion or second place team. So pretty exciting there if you look at that. But Rob, just to answer your question, looks like Friday, a south wind of 11 mile an hour. So to be honest with you, we're going to be in the stadium. Probably won't have much for wind temperature there or any wind gusts. So
Good.
Should be fine.
Good.
That'd be good. North-south. Don't all fields go north-south too? So
Most
either
all.
kicking into it or kicking with it. So that'd be fine.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it is hard to pick against the Hawks. It is. Especially against Minnesota when we're 5-0 the last 5 years. But the thing that just keeps coming back to me is like I'm looking at what were we doing the first 2 games when we lost those games? Now we've decided we're going to start running the ball. You know what I mean? But like if we're down, we're not going to be running the ball. I think it comes to game script. I think it comes down to game script. I think it comes down to play calling, truthfully, which is I hate having to call out play calling like that. Especially with, but I mean,
You can't call it out before the game, Rob.
right. I mean, but like at the same time, like I don't see any consistency, which, hey, maybe they're trying to not show their cards for like games later on in the season, which I understand is a strategy. But like Brian Ferentz, like I want to know what's going on up there. Like, what's going on in Minnesota. You can look at the last 3 games that they played on paper, or you can watch film and you can see like, okay, well, they run this up the pass. They have playmakers. It's going to be like, try and stop us, basically. They score a lot of points. They've played terrible defenses. They allow a lot of points. But I mean, like, it's for us play calling. Like, if you watch the last 3 games, like, I don't see any correlation. Like, I don't understand. Like, I see similar plays, obviously. Like, I see us run end arounds. I see us run screens. And I love that. I think he's very good at like picking up specific plays in specific situations.
Right.
But I also don't trust him sometimes on a 3rd and long or a 2nd down where we should just run the ball and we throw an incomplete pass. So I don't know, guys, like listeners, like it's up to you. I mean, I hate picking against the Hawks, but like I have not gained a lot of confidence in the 3 games that I've seen. And I guess that's reflected in my prediction, but
To be honest, Rob, I'm with you. I think it goes down to quarterback play. I think if Petrus could ball out and throw 2-3 touchdowns and 300 yards and look complete throughout the game rather than having spurts, I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah,
So.
I just feel like I'm trying to justify like my doubt, I don't know. Dill, what do you think?
I can see it both ways. I really can. It's just tough to say. I think, hating on the play calling before the game, I get it. The level of consistency hasn't been there, but I try to take the side of these coaches where, before the game, they come up with this script for the first, 100 plays or whatever it ends up being. I don't know,
Yeah.
probably 50 plays, that 100 plays are not right. But
I thought
anyways,
usually they script like
for
the
the
first
first-
like 10. Usually the first quarter, right?
I
You know,
don't know, our high school
Kirby would know.
fucking did like a yeah, Kirby.
Yeah, let's get him back in here.
Hey, you were in college at UIU. How long did your coaches script the plays? Do you know? Was it 20 plays, 10 plays?
Usually, maybe
I'd probably say
12 to
10.
15.
That'd be my
12
guess is
to
10.
15.
Okay.
Okay.
12
so
to 15. So if it's a 10 play
10 very
drive,
well could be right.
that could be scripted.
Absolutely. So, it's tough to say necessarily. I think the script is, partially just seeing what that defense is bringing you in. Obviously, this Minnesota defense hasn't brought a lot. So, I don't know. I see it every which way. I really do. I just think the guys are going to win. That's all I know. I think they're going to get it done.
Well, let's hope they
I'm
do.
excited. It's a Friday night game.
Right.
I'm excited for it.
Yep. Well,
Yeah, give me
that is our predictions. It is up to you to make the right decision if you are placing your bets for this weekend. I don't know, guys. Closing thoughts. I thought we kind of hammered everything we needed to hammer. We probably belabored the point a little bit more than maybe we needed to on some things, but
I was going to say closing thoughts. Even though I picked the over, technically I'd hammer the under. And as far as the spread, I wouldn't touch it. So,
And thanks to all the listeners too. We appreciate you guys. Like, subscribe, follow. We love you guys. Thanks.
well, we can
Love
take
you.
this episode out like we always do with a little Hawkeye victory polka, and hopefully we'll be able to sing along tomorrow night. Thanks for
There we
listening,
go.
guys. I appreciate y'all.
go Hawks.
Go Hawks.